uh,
All right. Oops.
Ooh.
All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this awesome storyboarding drawing jam brought to you by Schoolism for Lightbox Expo. Yay. Awesome. And so today we have our esteemed presenters, our esteemed yeah, presenters. That's a good word. Uh, Starting off with, let me do a little intro here. I'm going to also share the board that we're going to be drawing on. Okay, so starting off with, from the top, Kris Pearn, director, story guru. I've known Kris for, geez, probably close to 20 years, my friend.
Most
20
of the bet.
freaking years. Almost,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
I think two,
19 maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
geez.
Yeah.
As a student, I met Kris, and I just want to let everybody know. Before I knew him, when I was just a student, I walked into an elevator. I shared an elevator with you, Kris, and I saw that you were wearing a Fox animation hat. Talked to you about it, and you're so nice to me. And that just goes to show how people truly are when they have no reason to be nice to you, and they are anyways. So,
Yeah.
Kris Pearn, director of Willoughbys, excuse me, on Netflix. Uh,
Wallabies is next year. We're working on the sequel.
the sequel, can't wait. And next up is Andy Cung. Andy, a Netflix storyboard artist for a while. Now he's taking a slight break, but I think Netflix it might be knocking at the door again. I don't know. Something's going on. People are knocking. And he's doing amazing things there. And then, of course, Michael Daley from Pixar. I've heard of that studio. It's a big-ish kind of studio, I think. They've done amazing things, of course. Mike, I've known you for quite a while, too, over 10 years. Yeah,
Right.
since Blue Sky days, I think.
Yeah.
We'll hopefully get into that. And this is really just a wonderful group of old friends. Seo Kim does not look old, yet we have known each other for a
Yeah.
very
Yet
long
I
time as
am.
well.
Yeah.
Because I knew you when you found the Subway Sketch Group as a teenager, and now
Yeah, I
an
was like
established,
16.
very
Wow.
very
Yeah.
respectable, awesome powerhouse artist at Netflix as well. So
Thank you.
here we go. Here's the fun little activity here, and this is how it's gonna work. We have 4 rows of boards. The first person is gonna start on the first board, and then the second person will start to scribble their thing on the next board, and do their thing, and then the second person does their thing, and then as the second person does their thing, the third person starts to do their thing, and then the first person goes, okay, I need to connect my boards to this person's boards, and this person needs to connect their boards to the next person's boards, and so on and so forth, making storyboards at the same time to create a story at the same time. Okay, and also I was thinking it's always good to start off with not a completely blue sky, am I right? Have some sort of elements there, perhaps some prompts or some items that we can work into the story, perhaps. And since this is live with everybody online, let's get some suggestions, okay? Some suggestions from the crowd, from the audience.
But it's like improv.
yeah, improv.
Whose line is it? Right.
Hey, Bobby, how do I get into the thing?
Oh, yes, that would be good. Let me send that to you.
I'll just watch. I'm cool with watching. I'll throw out suggestions for you guys to draw.
All right, so let me know if there's anything that hits you. Okay, so dragons, beach, 3 a.m., a gun on the table, bike ride, circus, VR theme, rat ninja, circus dragon, stop me at any time, basket of kittens, waiting for the bus, totally up for some dragons, in the rain, 40
So
years old. Yes.
do we
All of it.
just jump in, Bobby, or
Yeah, just pick one that you like and we'll get started.
who
Okay,
goes first?
what's that?
Chris, you want to start? Why don't you start us off?
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
So do we assign the rows like we did
Yeah.
last time?
Yeah, so why don't we have Kris go first, Andy go second, Mike go third, and Sue, you go last, since that's the order of the Zoom windows right now.
Sweet.
All right, this one's Mike.
Gun on the table. All right.
Gun on a table.
Love it. I love it. And as we go through this presentation, we can also take questions. Okay, so if you have questions, you could feel free to. Now the questions is really, it's only for the Lightbox Expo attendees. Okay, so that got into the Zoom call. If you have a question, you could type it in, or sometimes I'll ask people to raise their hands, and then I will get to you as well. Okay, and you could ask a question live to our panelists here. Okay, first question for anybody, of course, is if the composition is symmetrical, what other elements can be included so the shot looks asymmetrical?
Light.
That's a good one.
Sounds
That's
like
a
a
good
riddle.
one.
You can use light to frame and sort of draw the eye. Anybody else? I couldn't remember what else was said at the beginning, but this out the window here is going to be a beach,
Ooh, nice.
and it's
Sorry,
a
Bobby,
worried direct.
I'm not able to connect. Are you sending a link?
Oh, did you go in the Google, in the chat of Zoom? I sent it directly to you.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'll send it again.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
What was the question again, Bobby? It was like if you have a symmetrical composition.
Yes, a symmetrical composition, what other elements can be included so the shot looks asymmetrical? Characters.
Characters, yeah,
That'd
you
be a
can do
good
size
one.
relationship.
You said
Yeah.
lighting.
I guess what would be the reason for? I guess my first question would be, what would be the reason for making it
Love it.
asymmetrical? Like if you just want to like generate interest, or if you want to kind of like keep some energy going in a specific direction. But I just question like maybe you want the thing to be symmetrical. I know there's a lot of feedback that's always like, oh, use asymmetry a lot, but sometimes it works to your advantage to use symmetry, especially when you're trying to do something that's like, this is like a settled situation. This is something that's, it's quiet. It's kind of like Zen, or this character centered, things like that.
Can you think of a situation with a board, a scene from a show that you worked on that's already out that you used a symmetrical composition?
All
Go ahead.
all the time on Cloudy, I mean, we were really kind of trying to create a world that was like, built for comedy. And so quite often when you're doing comedy, you use really simple stage line to allow the acting to work. And so like the idea of symmetry really traps the eye. Like if you think of like where Flint was sitting on the dock there, like it was really designed to be really even, that sense of being trapped.
Oh, very cool. Let's go on to another question here. So next question is from Archie Eka. Should the portfolio have to be one style, or it could be a wide range style? Or
Is this
how
a story
wide
portfolio?
Yeah, let's talk story. So how wide of a style as well, right? Like,
I I mean, for me, you guys should weigh in if you disagree, but I almost don't care that much about style. It's more about tone. So if I'm looking at a story artist, I'm kind of curious as to what kind of range they have. Can they do drama? Can they do comedy? Can they, build an action, build a beat, tell a joke? So as far as like drawing style goes, it's more like, can you communicate that you can draw well and draw fast? But I'm more interested in like how's your thinking? How do you come up with ideas, and what kind of bend do you have?
And Mike, I see a lot of thinking happening in your cursor there.
Oh yeah, lots of thinking. I'm like, is it slow? Is it slow? It's kind of slow.
I'm sure you must be thinking, what are you doing, Andy? You got me in such a huge pickle now, trying to figure out how to line everything up.
I'm thinking, how can I get revenge on Andy?
We'll switch the order around on the next round.
Oh, excellent.
I think Kris might have the hardest part. It's like, how do you connect the 3 a.m. dragon waking up with a gun to dragon with machine gun coming out of the mouth, 2 pistols in the hands?
Well, being last, I'm just like, la la la.
Yeah.
Why don't we go to the next question here? Kayla asks, is there a real difference between TV boards and feature boards? Ooh, that one. Yeah, Kris probably has the most experience with like both sides of the fence.
Feature boards, they get cut quicker because most of what you do in feature ends up on the cutting room floor. TV boards, they tend to have to. In my experience, it was a lot about like trying to make the script work and trying to build out the camera dynamics. But like with feature boards, I don't know, Mike, you're a Pixar guy. Quite often, like we don't have we have a script, but it was shelved after your launch, and we're kind of making up stuff. So there's a lot more blue sky in feature. Yeah,
I think you're right, totally, Kris. Like it just seems faster in TV. Sometimes I think it's like, oh wow, it's cool. It's like, I guess whatever you do kind of just makes it into the episode that you're working on, because it's just like, well, we don't really have a lot of passes on this, But if I'm working on a feature and I'm early on and I'm on screening 1 or 2, and I know that it's going to go for like another 4 or 5 years. Probably everything I'm doing is just kind of like testing things out, testing characters, all this stuff, and very rarely will any of that kind of like make it all the way through to the final. I'll be surprised if it is, and just because of that nature, I think there's like a little bit more ownership in TV, because I see kind of people work on one episode, they get their little edits in there or whatever, and then they have that, and that's the episode that they made. But I think in story, a lot of times they end up touching other people's work a lot. So a lot of scenes that you see in feature have probably passed through multiple story artists touching it until it gets to the end. Yeah.
I remember back in the day going down memory lane here. I'm a student. Kris is my neighbor, and he's teaching in college and working on like 2 or 3 shows at the same time or something. Those times must have been insane. Those you probably blocked it out of your memory by this point.
No, it's pretty much just that's the way the business is, right? You hustle. Always been hustling.
Sue's been hustling since she's been a teenager, getting into the industry and everything. Sue, you worked on Adventure Time, didn't you?
Yes.
What was the timelines like for that?
Oh, like our deadlines?
Turnaround.
Crazy.
For a 22-minute show.
Well, they're 11-minute episodes. They would air in 22-minute blocks, but we worked in partners. So I had the same partner throughout the entire 4 years I worked at Adventure Time, Sampalai, the guy.
I wasn't there.
Um, but yeah, we were responsible collectively for an 11-minute episode. So initially we had 1 week to do our first pass, which is crazy.
Yeah,
It extended it to 2 weeks. So total for the 11-minute episode, we'd get it was 4 weeks when I started, and they turned it to 5 weeks. But it's very short.
So initially
So
1 week for 11
yeah,
minutes.
1 week for the first thumbnail pass, and then we'd get notes, and then another week for the second pass, and then we'd have 2 weeks to clean up.
Is that
But
drastically different than you at Pixar, Mike?
Yeah, I think we don't really clean up. It just kind of goes to edit, because I think I think Sue stuff is going to go directly. It sounds like it's just going to go directly into production. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like once you kind of clean that up, it's like here's the episode, and story and features just like, well, this is going to go into edit. We're going to cut this, kind of keep it rough, get an idea of where it is, see if it works within this 90-minute film. If it does, then we'll keep it. Maybe you'll have a chance to kind of clean it up as we go.
Usually, if you work on a drawing and you like it, that's the thing that they find and kill.
Yeah. I love this drawing. We'll get rid of that. Cool.
yeah, I've never worked in feature, but that kind of stuff always scared me. Like, just all your work having to be cut and having to be redone. It's such a different way of working, it seems, than what I'm used to with TV.
Were you working off of an outline?
Yeah, we worked off an outline, but we had like a lot of creative freedom and responsibility to add to the outline and organize it into organize it into like a coherent like story, because the outline would have like the basic plot and like joke suggestions, but we'd have to like fill it in with our own jokes, and we had to write dialogue as well. So
wow,
we basically like it felt like a director role for the board artists on Adventure Time. It's not like that on all shows, but for us it was like we had a lot of responsibility.
That's fun.
Nice.
So yeah, the first pass was intense. I mean, like I said, they did extend it to 2 weeks, which didn't feel like that much different, honestly, because we would just push it out anyways. But
that's the other reality. No matter how much time you have, you can screw away with it until it's like you got to do it in 2 days.
I almost think it was better when we had 1 week to do the first pass, and then if we had extra time at the end to do cleanup, that would have been better. But we had to get it all in that first pass. Like, we had to get jokes in, because we would have to pitch it and it like get a reaction. So it's hard.
How do you feel about writing the dialogue for the characters that you didn't like? I mean, it's just such specific characters. Yeah,
I was bad at it. I don't know. Like, I'm not a good person to ask about dialogue, because that's something I just like. I felt like I was just thrown into the fire, because I never like thought of myself as a writer when I started. So that's something I learned on the job, and I'm still not very confident in that area. So I always like leaned towards doing visual jokes, because that's what I'm better at doing.
Well, one of the episode that I watched and I was like, that reminds me of Sue, was this episode of Adventure Time where they end up on a cat planet.
Oh yeah, they were really. That was my second episode ever. They were really nice to me, and they like wrote an episode for me that I would have fun doing, and
that had hardly any dialogue.
Yeah.
So it all makes sense now.
Yeah, I totally boarded that episode. I did most of the cat parts in the episode, and I got to design the colors for the cat, after my own cat, Jimmy. So
Oh, cute.
R.I.P. Jimmy died last year.
But he lives
Aw.
on in an animated form.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta say, you guys are freaking geniuses. Because as I was watching this, I'm like, okay, if I was Kris, I'd be like, man, Andy, what are you doing? And then after that, it's like darts. Okay, I kind of get that. And then there's an egg, and then there's a cat that hatched out of the egg, and I was like, oh man,
I
how
want
are
to
they
get
gonna
all
do
these
this?
questions, and I heard kittens, so I want to put that
But then
in.
seeing Mike's, it's like, oh, that that makes so much sense. You just connected it. That's amazing.
Yeah, let's hope, huh? Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
and then
Bob,
Kris,
you
you're
just have to act as director, and if you think it makes sense, that's great, man. Awesome. Thanks.
ship it. It's good. And then Kris, you must have saw the people that Mike was drawing and connected
Yeah.
it there too. Jeez,
Trying to connect it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Genius.
awesome.
Genius.
Can we explain the difference between like script driven and board driven? So I can't remember this drawing. I think I'm not,
I've never worked on a script-driven board or script-driven show. But script-driven is like they have writers that write the entire script with all the dialogue, and a storyboard artist just translate it visually. And with board-driven, which is what I we get like a 3-page-ish outline, and then we fill in most of the dialogue and write a lot of the jokes and do everything basically. So outline driven is a lot harder,
Yeah, seems like
or board driven.
Let's go to a live question now. Attendees, raise your hand if you want to ask a question live. All right, Ashanti. Hello, Ashanti. You can unmute yourself and tell us where you're from and what's your question.
Hi guys, I'm from
Hi.
State.
Hi.
How are you guys?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I'm actually working on my own storyboard as I'm watching you guys. But my question is, what's the most intimidating thing about either being a feature storyboard artist or being a television storyboard artist?
You intimidated?
Doing this thing live. This is more intimidating.
All right. Well, let's go on to another question, shall we? Anybody else have a question? Raise your hand. All right. Karen. Hello, Karen. Where are you from? What's your question?
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm from Mumbai in India.
Hi.
And my question is a little bit more technical.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Kris. So happy to see you again.
You too. Yeah.
I just want to know what exercises we can do to kind of bring in clarity, or what are the things that we can keep in mind to bring in clarity in our storyboards while keeping it simple and quick.
Draw. I always feel like I say this, and maybe this is wrong because I'm looking at Kris Pearn's awesome, very like nicely like composed stuff. But like my boards are always kind of boring. I think like filmmaking wise, just because I just try to show the clearest thing all the time. Like whatever like the simplest thing is. Like if it's like a person's looking at a plant, I'll draw that plant from that perspective. And I'll draw their reaction to, oh, I love plants or something. But just like all of my stuff ends up being like pretty, just kind of like as clear as you can. And I think that kind of like helps with like being like just very, very specific in what you're trying to do. So if you're worried about composition too much at the beginning, you can kind of like edit that stuff as you go. You can kind of like change the composition. You're like, oh, I want this plant to be really scary, so I'm going to use a little bit more of a dynamic angle or something like that. But a lot of times I feel like I am always just trying to draw kind of like the simplest thing and quick. And then the other thing is that I would say is there's a good tip from Jim Cameron, who's a story artist, and he almost everything we do at Pixar specifically, and that kind of like animation is character driven, and so because of that, most of the time it's just eyeballs and silhouettes of the characters. If you can get that face in there, just like knock out that face, and then just like whatever the silhouette of the character is. Like if you look at like Andy's like third panel here, it's like super clear, right? Like if you just like color all this in like a silhouette, it'd be like you totally see what it is. But he also has the like the expression on the character's face, so you kind of you get the whole picture in there with this one very like quick drawing. And it really just comes down to eyeballs and silhouettes most of the time, because we as humans are like masters at looking for human faces in everything. The first images of Mars that came back, they found like some shadows that looked like a face, and everyone flipped out. And I think there was even like an Unsolved Mysteries episode of like, oh, there's like a face on Mars. There's aliens up there. They're building stuff. But really, what it comes down to is we're human beings, and so we're good at looking for faces. It's the reason why you can kind of like look at some uncanny valley like CG that's not as clear, and maybe it ends up being like, oh, like I can really see. It's like, oh, this is CG, and it's like even though like it might be very, very close to reality, and it's just simply because you're the master of looking for eyes, face, silhouette, expression. You're a master of this, just being a human being by default. So like those are the things that people kind of look for. A lot of times you can kind of, you know, get away with being a little lazy on backgrounds, perspective, things like that. But as long as like you can see that character, you can see that expression in their faces. You look at Sue's drawings, these first two drawings, it's like you get what's going on. You know, Sue doesn't necessarily need to draw backgrounds or anything like that. You kind of like what the main point of the panel is, the expression of these characters, and it's just very clear. Does that make sense?
Fantastic. Yes, that was very, very thorough and awesome. Let's go to one of the written questions here. This one's from Julie. What storyboard shorthand, like drawing shortcuts, do you use the most? Now, you were just talking about shorthand.
Same thing. I think like if I was going to redraw like this kind of like third panel here, and so so if I'm just going to redraw this, I want to just show the expression on the character, and on the dragon. Maybe he's like surprised, he gets a prize, right? So that's like the first thing that I want to draw. And really, I just kind of like, in a lot of ways, I'm not going to do like insane perspective to like get it like looking too complicated. I'm really just going to like keep him like, you know, let's look at whatever the other the drawings were here. The dragon has kind of like big ears. Okay, cool. So what I'll do is I will, you know, I'll draw the big, I'll just make sure that like the big ears are here. Draw this eye. Maybe it looks like this now. Oh, he looks over, maybe he's looking over his shoulder because the guy comes from behind him, right? Because in the panel right before, he was just like, I won. And so now he's like, he's over here. Maybe I'll, in his hand over here, I'll put the gun still. But really what I'm looking for is kind of this face here. And then the next probably thing is going to be the prize. So like probably the egg. And then this guy or whoever's like bringing it to him, this lady, I'm just going to give her a hat, a ponytail, and she's just kind of like, let's say she's kind of like a little bored or something. So then she just is here. And everything else I draw in the scene after this is kind of like superfluous. So even I would just be like, oh, okay, cool. Well, if they're in a room, I'm going to put the perspective right behind this egg. So here's all the perspectives that are like point at this egg, right? And so like here's the wall, and here's the ceiling, and here's the floor, and that kind of stuff. Oh, here's some tables over here. It might get too complicated because now you're starting to draw stuff in between like what you're trying to look at, but you're trying to get like a a thing that kind of points to what you want the audience to look at.
That's a good point, actually, that idea of like pointing where you want the audience to look. I always like to flip. I don't know if you do that, Mike. Like, I tend to draw really scribbly, and I tend to not work this way in like sequence. Like I'll tend to just start with scribbles and flip and try to imagine like I'm watching a movie. Like I think the real trick is trying to get into the head of an audience and see if what you think you're saying you are saying, and quite often it's taking away that blank page and just going fast and trying to get as much down as quick as possible. And then I'll kind of like, once I get a whole chunk down, like a thought, whether it's a bit of action or like a joke or something, then I'll go back in and clean up and tighten. But you can work a lot faster, I find, if you don't work on one drawing at a time.
Totally.
That makes sense.
Well, Kris is one of the fastest drawers I know, so that makes perfect sense. And
Kris, this isn't a comic book, dude.
Not good drawer, fast drawer. That's
yeah, he's got the lighting in there. He's got like color in there and everything. It's nuts.
What I don't have is a story, so we'll see what happens.
It's in there.
Well, and we have pretty much one more panel to go, and then we could pitch this story to the audience. This is gonna be great.
Trying to figure out where this line came from in my last panel.
Oh, probably me.
Trying to sway you, trying to make you do what he wants you to do.
Yeah, exactly. I'll sway you. Oh no, it's not me. Wait, maybe it is me. Hold on. No, it's not me.
I'll just draw over it.
Is it me?
In white. There we go.
There you go.
Fixed it. Okay.
Great. Well, why don't we go to another question here? We have Liv on in the audience. Hey, Liv.
Hiya.
Liv.
Hi, Liv.
It's Liv. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome.
We're checking. It's just I just wondered if you have any specific questions. Not questions. I'm asking a question. Yeah, specific tips for making dialogue more exciting. Like, what is the trick you always pull out of the hat?
Say it out loud. Say it out loud, and practice pitching. And I always feel like when I'm building dialogue, at least, you know, when I'm kind of developing something, like if it's a feature board or if it's something I have to pitch, I always sort of pitch it to myself a whole bunch of times. And then I walk away, like go do something else, and then come back and look at it with cold eyes and say it out loud again. I do that like 4 or 5 times and make adjustments before I go into that room to pitch it to an audience. And the reason is just I'm constantly wanting to hear it out loud and want to feel the pace of that dialogue. And then I also train myself so that way when I'm pitching it to an audience, I'm kind of rehearsed, so that way I can listen as opposed to just be focusing on remembering my lines. Because listening is a really big part of pitching, because that's how you learn whether something's sticking or not. So the only way to really, for me, the only way to get it right is to hear it, is to kind of feel it. And weirdly enough, when I'm writing, I like to write in public. So like I sit in a coffee shop, as cliche as that sound, or a bar, and it's just like being around people talking really helps me with dialogue. Or I listen to an audiobook or put on a TV show that I like just having some noise there helps to sort of, for my brain, to keep the doubt at bay.
I noticed there's a lot of the connection between social aspects of things like bars, drinking, and storytelling.
Yeah, I fully believe in that adage. You know, write drunk and edit sober. It works.
What about any of you? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I took improv to help out to get with that. And one of my mentors told me screenwriting is slow improv and improv is screenwriting. It's interesting because by doing improv, you start planning your voice. And you start gravitating towards certain things that you tend to say or certain jokes or tone. So I thought that was a great way. And then with improv, you tend to learn, I think there's set comedy patterns or tricks that people do, like expectation versus reality. So by doing improv, you just run through so many things. You start picking up on these different types of comedy tools. But what's great with improv that I took from it was like just throwing it out there and just, it's like editing. If you don't like it, cut it out and you move forward.
Also that feeling of playing, right? Because that's a big part of improv is like being safe to play.
I mean, this is kind of pretty much what we're doing with the improv. We're just taking this one word and we're yes anding it throughout the whole story and tying it together, which I think is great.
Well,
what was the word again?
To Kris's credit, he took like 3 of those prompts, I think. People were talking about dragons. He took the dragon thing, gun on the table, 3 o'clock in the morning. He mashed it all together, and I don't even know what else he probably put in there.
Trick is paying them all off.
Yeah.
Well,
that's on you, Sue.
Yeah, that's up to everybody else.
Oh, hey, Bianca. Bianca's here.
Awesome. Does anybody else have a question in the audience? You could raise your hand. I'll give you a mic. All right.
No
well,
questions.
Okay. No, they're all popping up like crazy now. Okay, so I think Rachita, you were first.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
So I was wondering, how has storyboarding been different from what you expected when you started out professionally?
I thought the revisions would get less as I got older, but they don't. I thought I'd figure out the job. No, I think the technology's really sped things up. It's a bit more like filmmaking because you can sort of get stuff into a timeline really fast. And I also love like sitting and edit and having like real time, like working with an editor and like throwing scribbles into the Avid, and you can actually make a movie almost like on the fly. And it really does depend on how the studio works, but like that to me is you took forever when we were drawing on paper because you had to draw it and then clean it up and then scan it, and then 9 people had to touch it before it went into the box. But now we can just do things pretty seamlessly.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's like sounds right. It's kind of this, but I feel like it came with its own kind of like problems as well, where the boards now, it's like, oh, you should really get these to play, and it's like, you mean animate? And it's like, yeah. Oh, okay. So there's like this kind of like feeling of wanting to really make it flow and animate, and sometimes it does call for that, and with the digital stuff, there's no reason not to. But I think when I think about like, if you ever looked at like how many boards were drawn for stuff that's on paper for those movies versus the counts that were done for things that are now in digital, right, it's like 200 times or something ridiculous.
Like Bill Pete would do 50 drawings, and then there would be 12 animators who would animate the entire Dalmatian movie, and that was it. You know what I mean? Like it was, but there was a lot less people. I know we were making like Cloudy 2, it was like an Amish barn raising because we got to the point you kind of run out of money, and then you have 120 animators. So it's like you spend 4 years storyboarding it, and then they animate it in 6 months. So it's like there's that scale thing, right? Which
right.
Is new.
Yeah. There's that's interesting. Did you ever talk to? Do you know Jim Capobianco? He's a story artist, and what he did was he actually took some of these 101 Dalmatians at one point. He had access to kind of Disney's archive, and he took those Bill Pete boards and he cut them to the audio track of 101 Dalmatians.
Amazing.
And it plays like a just not like modern board, like it plays like radio play.
Probably more like a kid's book, like the way Bill Pete would do his stories, right?
Totally. So it would be like there would be one drawing of Pogo running around the guy, and he tangles him up in his in his leash, but there's like one drawing, and for that an animator probably worked. It's probably like 10 seconds of joke in there, and the animator but like they just like kind of held it, and it works.
Well, back in the day too, like layout used to do a lot more. Like there was a lot more kind of like work in that step where like the layout camera people had their like they would build their packages and everything had to be drawn, right? And all those like camera moves and stuff had to be mapped and done on the big Oxburys and stuff. So
Yeah.
All that's different now. Like now the storyboard artist is kind of doing early layout in terms of scene mapping and stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, with stuff now, if a scene is built, I'll take screen grabs and just be like, here's my backgrounds. And it's kind of like fudged a little bit because of, but like if you can mess with like film camera, like lenses and things like that, then it's like, all right, I'll just put these backgrounds in here. I don't know. I feel like sometimes I'm making it worse. Sometimes I'm making it better, but I feel like it's like, dude, like, thank you, but we're going to change all this.
This is great. Looks like it's pitching time. Shall we do the little pitch of the story?
Sure. I guess, do I start, Bobby?
Yeah, well, you could each pitch each other's rows, or your own rows. Okay,
so it's a dark and stormy night down in Cape Cod, and there's a worried dragon looking out the window. It's like 3 a.m. He's got a feeling that they're going to show up. He's just nervous, and the gun's loaded on the table. Suddenly the door kicks in, bang! He reaches for the gun, and they're like, back off. It's time to pay up, dragon. And he's like, what makes you think I'm going to give you anything? It's like, because we got the guns. Don't worry, he only has one on the table. But then he's like, surprise, motherfuckers. Next one. Go, Andy.
Oh, and the dragon's like, surprise, motherfuckers. I gotta get him out now. Takes out a bunch of people. Murphy dies, and Bob here's like, oh, that you, Murphy. He gets up from the couch. Pew, 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 pew. And then the dragon unleashes his dragon blast.
Yeah. And boom, pew, 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 hits the wall behind them. It's darts. They're playing some weird game of darts this whole time. Tricked you. Boom, smoked you fools, says the dragon. Oh, well, you wrecked our place, but rules are rules. Here's your prize. And they bring out an egg, and they slowly put it on the ground next to Murray's dead body.
And the egg hatches, and it's an adorable kitten. And the dragon's like, oh my god, a kitten. And then one of the ninjas steals the kitten away, and the dragon's like, oh, no, what's going to happen? And then you see the dragon sleeping in bed, and only 2 minutes have elapsed. And we don't know if it was all a dream, or the dragon gave up and went to bed.
You almost got the rat ninja in there. If you put a tail on that ninja, that was one of our first ideas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Loved it.
That's nice work, everybody.
Yay! Great job, everybody. All right.
I keep waiting to wake up in 2020 is all a dream. Is that still going to happen, guys?
Yeah.
I hope so.
So.
Shall we do another one? Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. Hold on. Let me bring a board to the top here. And audience, YouTube and Zoom, feel free to ask or bring in your suggestions.
So does Sue go first because she went last time?
Toronto here.
I guess we'll just reverse order then.
Pumpkin patch, balloons. Matt Roberts, Mike Daley, Mario Kart losing. What a troll. Hey, Bobby, can you get Matt Roberts out of the chat, please?
Oh, hey, Emma.
And how do you know Bianca, Andy?
Just on Twitter. Just through.
She was my old classmate.
Your chicken milkshakes.
Yeah.
Slippery chicken from Josiah.
All right, you guys want to pick a prompt yourselves collectively?
I like hamburgers because I'm hungry right now.
I like Mario Kart.
Mario Kart?
Mario Kart. Yeah.
Okay, hamburger Mario Kart. Am I going first?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Oh, she gets started?
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to Julie. Or actually, let's take a... I just mentioned Julie. She'll be upset if I don't say her question now. So let's go to Julie's question. How do you first approach a composition? Is it by feel, like imagining your shot in your head? Or is there something more technical? Is there a more technical way to do it?
For me, it's more about... But I think the big thing is like understanding the story and understanding what I want the audience to feel. And I kind of like use that as my North Star to dictate what type of shots I want in terms of composing it.
I'll find, Andy, do you find like sometimes when it's like the first drawing, like I'll fish a bit, but once I start to get into a sequence, then I'm kind of tracking eye direction and kind of like where you want the audience to be pacing with you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I storyboard like vertically, like kind of like the Miyazaki thumbnails on his storyboard books. And I realized that by doing that, you can help track the eye easier because you're kind of like, so that's kind of what I usually do. But yeah, so it's like putting that idea down, like you said, and kind of figuring out the focal points in the eye line to match it up.
Anybody who's worked with me on the Willoughbys knows I'm obsessed with triangles too. Like I'm always looking for angles to kind of point eyes, like, you know, very quickly try to draw those in and then build out from that.
It's interesting. I listened to a director's comment or round a table with Sam Mendes, who did like Skyfall, and he did 1970. And he came from doing plays, directing plays. So he says for plays, the main focus is the actors and the stage. But as a filmmaker, what tells the story is the composition with every frame. And that kind of just helped me kind of approach my storyboards a bit different. Where it's like I said, how can we guide the eye? Like that's gonna be a huge thing, like directing the eye. And what does that composition say? And have a thought behind it.
And sometimes you have anchoring elements, like in that last storyboard, there was like the gun, which was kind of like a continuity thing. So I'll pick like if there's an anchoring element, you see like like in Breaking Bad, you notice this, like where they'll shoot through something, and then that thing will be in the back of the shot. Like there's those kind of repetitive, you know, visual cues that you can keep the audience on board with you as you go. Yeah.
Bobby, I got kicked out again.
Oh no!
You got kicked out of the.
Fancy.
Oh, you kicked out of the drawing board?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
I tried to do something fancy. Sorry.
That's a funny hamburger choice. The eyes are on the bum.
You
see eyes?
Where else would they go?
My brain went to the Hamburglar. You know, it's like it's like maybe it's a cultural difference. Where like as a generational thing, like where would you put the eyes on a hamburger?
Mario eating a hamburger.
Maybe it's a TV versus feature difference.
Kris, it wasn't a hamburger in Cloudy too.
What's that?
Yeah.
Cheese. There was Cheese Spider, and he had the sesame seeds were the eyes. It was like
excellent.
Mike,
but I remember.
Did you get
remember
the
being a kid?
I'm here.
Remember being a kid and playing in the McDonald's play area, and you climb up into Mayor McCheese's head.
Oh, yeah.
Very traumatic.
Well, we can go on to another question here. We have Tom S. Tom, you're on the air.
Oh, he's muted.
Tom, you want to unmute yourself?
Did I do it? Did I solve it? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clear.
Nice. All right. Hi, everybody. This is so cool. I kind of have an industry kind of question about specifically board-driven shows that you were talking about earlier. And I kind of understood from talking like to the guild and stuff that sort of there's not a lot of jobs in it, that it sort of pays the worst, that there aren't any ones for adults, that even if you write sort of basically the whole script on a board-driven show, you're not recognized as a writer. First off, I hope you can tell me like it's all lies and dismiss it if that's possible. And if not, do you see that like changing or like what's stopping it from changing?
I mean, I worked on a board-driven show. I got paid really well, and then
thank God.
I got writing credit for it. So I think that goes against I don't know what was said. And for me, I think board-driven shows are really fulfilling because you get that sense of ownership of writing and crafting a story. And for me, I love breaking story. So for us, when we get our outlines the first week, me and my partner, we actually re-break the story. And I think that's probably the most funnest part. It was like, you know, being in that story room and just bouncing ideas. And even our story editor was saying like, we do the outlines, the writers do the outlines, but as a boarders, we're doing the first draft. And I think it's a great opportunity. And for me, like, I learned a lot. I think it made me a better board artist to pick up writing and boards at the same time. So, I mean, that's my thoughts on that.
Wow, that's like the best answer I could have hoped for. Sorry, thanks.
Yeah, I think it's good. You know, Annie, what you're saying is true. I think, and sometimes there are predatory like opportunities out there where you kind of have to go in with your eyes open. But like, I don't know, it's all about momentum, isn't it? And once you get onto a good show, you know, it doesn't really, you know, it's all worth it.
Yeah, there is some truth to what you said in that, like, I got a screen credit, but I feel like we weren't quite paid enough for the amount of responsibility that we had as board artists on that particular show, because we had to do so many different things. But I loved the show, and it was really like an invaluable learning experience for me, and like I can't complain because of that, because like I had such a good time working on that show, and it made me a better artist being so challenged. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Is that Sailor Moon thing gonna be part of it? Are you gonna work that in somehow?
Has to.
All right, we have I'm gonna allow you to talk, and you could tell me your name and where you're from.
Hello. It's my first name, Junior, but I go by Jay, so don't worry about it. It's very awkwardly spelled. I did send a text version of this question, but it might be quicker to get answered this way. So, what are some exercises you'd recommend for building up speed and efficiency? So, personally, I focus studying on accuracy and just the fundamentals to get a better grasp on that. But I feel like I'm at a point where now I understand the fundamentals to enough of a degree to build my speed and efficiency. So that's what I was kind of curious about.
Okay. Do you mind if I jump in, guys?
Good.
I mean, one of the things that really helped me early on was like just doing a lot of like Moleskine sketchbooking in like out in the world. And it's not just drawing people, you got to draw kind of everything around the what you see. And then I always try to, you know, kind of make up little ideas of what's happening. So as the scene changes, I just sort of finish my drawing as quick as I can. And I think that observing from life, but also not just drawing a character, but drawing like the world around the character, that really allowed me to speed up in my compositions because it forces you to make choices. But Andy, Mike, Sue, how about you guys?
Sorry, what was the question? I had a request.
Yeah, I missed it. I was I was like focused on my drawing.
How do you build up speed once you kind of have the fundamentals down?
Deadlines make you work.
Oh yeah,
fear. Deadlines.
Fear is good.
That's a good answer.
Well, the other thing is, when you have deadlines, I think you end up making better decisions because you're not dilly-dallying. So I think just, I don't know, at least for me.
I've been doing, I mean, I did a couple of lives where I took requests from people, or not requests, but like they send me pictures to draw from the last couple of days for Xbox. I keep saying Xbox, like Box Expo. And that helps me a lot. There's just like having to draw under that time constraint, and even people watching. I mean, sometimes that can be nerve-wracking, but for me, that just it helps me make decisions on the spot, and it warms me up for when I'm working on my own. No one's watching me, and I kind of call up that headspace that I had when I was just like kind of almost on autopilot, but like functioning really well under that pressure. Whereas when I'm alone and I have all the time, you know, in the world, like it can take me like, you know, 20 times longer than it needs to, because I'm just going through like every possible option instead of just like honing in on like the best one, and just, yeah, I don't know.
That's great. All right.
The deadlines.
Yes, deadlines.
AJ asks, how rough or refined are boards generally expected to be?
Depends on the deadline.
Yeah, it's a sliding scale. If you have a very short amount of time, then you're kind of ripping through stuff. And I tend to feel like if you should clean up in the order of kind of almost importance of your boards. So a lot of times, if you do like a very rough pass, just rip through it as fast as you can. So you have something to throw on the wall, kind of look at it. And then once it's there, you can kind of decide like, all right, it's going to be very important for me to see this from this angle, this from this angle, or whatever. There's a big set piece in here. So I might spend a little bit more time on that drawing. And a lot of times I'll kind of like spend a little bit time on the first few boards panels and the last few panels. And then in there, you just kind of like systematically like clean up. A lot of times you can get away because of that, because the stuff is surrounded by clean stuff. You can get away with some very rough boards actually. But people understand what's going on. It kind of goes back to the eyeballs and silhouettes thing. Draw the characters like the simplest thing, like the easiest thing to see for people to read, and then once they can kind of like read that and get into the motion of it, it's much easier for you to kind of like move faster. And they don't necessarily care too much about the cleanup. A lot of times, I'll draw like something horrendous in the middle, but because it's like surrounded by stuff that's pretty clear, hopefully those horrendous drawings, they'll be like, the director's like, oh, don't even clean those up. Just send them to editorial because, if you, again, like it really just, for me, it's always kind of coming down to like, can you see the eyes? Can you see the silhouette? And can you, like the expression? Then it's like everything else essentially works. Okay, cool. So like, that's all you really need. Backgrounds fall out of boards in the middle all the time. Maybe if you're like in a new setting, if you're going to be like in a bowling alley or something, maybe you want one drawing that like you draw the bowling alley to be like pretty recognizable, and then for the most part you don't necessarily need to draw like every single individual person in the background bowling at the same time and all that stuff.
Abigail, you have the mic. What's your question?
Hi. So this might be kind of a weird question, but after you've boarded the whole thing, like you're in pre-production, just getting everything ready, like, are you boarding throughout like the whole like 4 years of production, like for a feature, or like just in the beginning, or like how does that work?
Yeah, you're kind of painting corners the whole time. So like, you're going to make that movie like 9 or 10 times by the time it's all said and done. Because every time you have a screening, you start over again. And so if you're one of the crew that kind of stays on to the end of the production, you end up kind of redrawing, and then you kind of paint into corners. So like as you start to run out of time and money, they start making the movie, and in those areas, they kind of come off a story. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. There's always what ifs. You're always drawing right to the last minute, and then the movies don't end. They just run out of money.
Yeah, true. You just run out of time. Time and money.
Excellent. Liv asks a pretty awesome question. This person asks, what tricks do you have for making dialogue scenes more exciting?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, storyboard artists are kind of like, a lot of times you will get scenes that are in feature, like heavy dialogue, and really it'll just be like, you can almost like turn in 2 drawings and just.
It's all about the suspense. Hopefully Mike will connect back up, but does anybody else have any feedback about that? What tricks do you have?
Cut to something else. Some like, don't just draw the characters talking. Like you can cut to anything else. Like I can't think of any examples, but Just don't draw what's happening.
It's a good point.
Sorry, don't draw what they're saying.
Sometimes when you have a lot of dialogue, if you cut to the other characters in the scene, like the reactions are more interesting than the actual action, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Why don't we go to the next question here? Do you find yourself, or let's go to the very top, we just answered that. Karen asks, what exercises do we do to help understand, bring clarity in our drawing, yet retain simplicity? I think we might have kind of gone over that a little bit before.
I always tell young artists to watch their work in time. So it's like you got to get out of the mindset that these are illustrations, that these are meant to be filmed. So I think if you can get yourself to a place where if you're boarding for yourself, you have to cut it. You have to put it in time and sort of look at it that way, because then you see right away what the clarity issues are, because stuff moves by, 1 frame a second or 20 frames a second. So if you don't see it, you don't see it. So then you revise based on what your audience is going to see.
Awesome. Any other questions? Raise your hand.
This is not the major inception of this session.
Maybe this might be a good time to go over this question. What is your daily work from home routine, and any warm-up exercise that you do?
I've been waking up early, going for my morning walk, listen to podcasts, come back, and then I'll type up the notes from the podcast as like kind of a way to get my head going, and then I'll start writing for a little bit and then boarding afterwards.
Oh, that sounds really like pro.
Yeah. Sounds
you
very
write notes
balanced.
from the podcast. That's cool.
Hey, what about
I
this?
feel like Andy is like a model of like efficiency. I feel from what I've seen from you, just like very organized in your tasks and stuff like that.
I'm not. I'm worse. I just very simple mind. Like today, just hit that, and you've accomplished so much. I'm writing that out.
I think that's part of your schemes, though, Andy. You pretend that you're the worst at all this stuff, and you pretend like you're not responsible, yet you're taking all these classes and you're doing all these things to improve yourself. You're full of lies. I see that.
Man. We see through that.
All right, great. Well, if anybody does have any other questions, you could raise your hand in the audience. I'll give you the mic. All right, then we'll go on to another question that was written in. This person asks, oh, sorry, my Zoom is getting a little crazy here. Do you find yourself more inspired by other comic artists, illustrators, rather than filmmakers, or is it equal, vice versa? Where do you get your inspiration from?
I get my I love listening to directors' commentaries and like interviews, but the big thing is like watching hip hop dancers. Like I just could just the way that they can tell stories with their movements, and then like being confident, because they're designing they're doing pretty much what we're doing with storyboards, like rhythm, editing, tone, all in there, just expressing it through their body.
Do you work that into your pitch?
Popping
Breakdancing?
and locking when
Popping
you're
and locking? So my pitch is going to be an interpretive dance.
My pitch is a TikTok dance with my friend in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just watch a lot of movies. I think I've been trying to, in the last few years, really kind of dig into that, and kind of like out of the box of stuff that I would probably see on a normal basis, and so kind of trying to expand that a little bit. What's been very helpful is the Criterion collection has like a channel now, and it's pretty good for like a bunch of just weird stuff. You kind of just start seeing like where your sweet spot is in terms of films, and I think that it can really help. Some stuff can be boarded, and some stuff it seems like they allow for a lot of happy accidents in the filmmaking. in especially in live action. And so that's always intriguing because I think animation struggles sometimes to get kind of that idea across, like the kind of like improvisational kind of like idea. Like if you had just an actor-driven film, and you have like a cameraman follow that actor around, you know, how do you storyboard that? You know, it can get kind of difficult. So unless they're in a motion capture suit, I don't know. But like I think that kind of stuff opens things up for me. And then of course, yeah, like, you know, perusing Instagram and illustrators, looking at people's stuff really inspires me. I tend to kind of get into like a weird mode. I don't know why. I've been reading a lot of like Ranma lately, and so like I've just kind of like revisiting that, which is kind of cool, and hopefully trying to keep my local comic store alive by like they're like, we don't carry that. I'm like, order it anyways. Yeah, I know you have some weird connection. I can get like all these Ranma, you know, manga books, and then I can like take a look at those and just kind of see like where the artist has taken some of that direction, and where their shortcuts are, things like that. Kind of drawing from them, but also like infusing that into like drawing from life. Things like that.
Excellent. We got Raven.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Raven.
Hi. This might be an extension of a personal problem, but I feel like for a while I've struggled with like developing my own voice, because I wanted to create a portfolio that studios wanted to see. And I was kind of wondering if you ever had that problem, and how did you develop your own voice?
Definitely. I think it's something we all struggle with. I mean, part of it is to what Mike and Andy were saying in the previous question, is like, I think consuming a lot of what you like, and being able to, you know, understand that you do like stuff, because usually your voice comes from what you like, right? So like if you're into comedy, like what kind of comedy do you like? If you're into, you know, drama, like what kind of stories are you gravitating towards? And if you can sort of live your life and look for the stories around you, I think that's where voice comes from. Voice is like what you have and what's in your head and what your experiences are. So wherever you're from, your experiences are going to be way different than mine, because we're just different people from different parts of the world. So I think that's really what studios look for. That's what I look for. Like I always look for people when I'm hiring in a folio, like just, you know, can you give me something I wasn't expecting, because it's yours, you know? And I do think that comes from taste, and that grows over time with life.
Some people, they say, oh, I'm too young. I haven't experienced anything yet. What about them? What would you say to them?
I think that is, I mean, everybody's experiencing stuff. I mean, I don't know. That seems like negative self-talk, which is like, you know, something that we all have, and we all have to work through. But if we can recognize that as being negative self-talk, I think we all have something to offer. I mean, if you've been alive on the planet long enough to hold a pencil, I think you have a story. And I think if we can sort of embrace that and lean into that, then we can find our voice.
Now, a lot of people, they say, well, there's not that many jobs out there, and there's way more people more experienced than you. Well, what about that? You know, what do you say to the employer when you don't have that much to kind of...
That's the hard thing. I mean, the catch-22 with storyboarding is like, you have to have storyboards to get storyboards, but we all find our way into it. And I think the trick is like, I think looking at, if you want to be an animation's it's a you know, a job that's got there's a lot of different people go into making something. So sometimes momentum comes from just getting that first job and getting into a studio. And then once people get to know you, then you start to get opportunities to stretch your limbs. That's sort of how I did it. I don't know, Mike, Andy, Sue, you guys.
Let me just point out that you were the last to start, Kris, and you're done. Jeez,
yeah, but the drawings are the worst.
Fast. You draw real fast. All right, well, I want to go to the next question here. Here's Hannah.
Hi. Can you guys?
Hi, Hannah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So my question is, does pitching make you nervous? And if so, is there anything you do to get rid of like pitching nerves?
It should make you nervous. That's good when it's nervous, yeah.
Makes me nervous every time. I never stop being nervous. Even with this, I got nervous for the pitch, honestly.
I feel like it's always like a roller coaster. It's like until you get that first laugh, like you feel like you're kind of going up that.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're pitching, Sue, like, do you guys pitch all, like, are you responsible for your full 11 minutes, or are you doing like are you divided up with your?
Yeah, I'm doing half of the 11 minutes, and it's up to us how we want to divide it, whether down the middle or we take, the acts that we want to take. But personally, with Samvalai, we would usually just cut it down the middle, because we didn't tend to collaborate too much. Like, we would just do our own sections and then pitch it blind, and then we would like doctor it together afterwards.
Answer
the question?
There's that old stand-up thing. It's like before you get really good at doing stand-up, you have to bomb for like 10 years.
Oh yeah, I totally did that.
Similar to what we do. You have to bomb a few times and realize it's not as scary as it feels.
Yeah, one sure way to remedy that is to practice your pitch a lot, which I never really did, because I would always be working right up to the last minute, and I probably needed to practice the most because I suck at pitching. But
your worst pitching experience, go.
Oh God, no.
Usually that happens after you have like you can kind of tell that the director, the producer have had like a real hard talk where they're like,
yeah,
you need to get this shit done right. And it's like they get like this really intense talk, and so they come into the room and they're not ready for any new ideas, nothing. So like they kind of come in and they're just like, you can tell they've just been hammered by whatever. It's like, look, we need to get this scene done like right this time, right now, and it's going to go into production or something. And so, but you're not privy to that, so you're like, hey, I'm a story artist. Let me like break the ice with a couple jokes, and then you pitch those, and then they're just like, still, and you're like, sweet. Anyways, and then you just like pitch like you're seeing, and sometimes they're just like, all these, you pitch jokes, no one laughs, they're not laughing at all, and they're just like, draw that character, go back and put that character all on model. And it's like, okay. It's like, at a certain point, it's kind of like you can kind of just see. So sometimes I'll start like pitches with like a meme or a couple jokes on like visual jokes, just to kind of like get everyone loosened up and goofy or something, like, so everyone kind of like, oh, ha, ha, ha. And then like you have the room, because sometimes the room will be like full of story artists, will be full of the director and the producer and all that stuff. And so you kind of just want everyone to kind of like be like on the same page, where it's kind of like everyone relaxes a little bit. And then you're like, cool, all right. And you just got to remember, all those people are there to help you make the best pitch you can. They're going to get sucked into your pitch like right away, and they just want, that they're going to help you. And so to make like the best thing you can make, and you're doing the same thing. So I think, thinking of it as a collaborative effort is important. And it's kind of like, Andy, I'm sure you're, experienced with the improv stuff, but kind of just like those early exercises you do just to kind of like get everyone loosened up and like everyone okay with each other, like just to like, and then you can kind of go forward.
What's that about?
Once had a director burst into tears right before I had to pitch. He was like, dealing with some studio stuff, and then there was like this big sort of moment, and then after she was sort of done doing her talk, and now Kris will pitch you a comedy sequence. It's just like a hard act to follow.
Oh my God.
I once pitched to Kris and Phil it was on Cloudy One, and at the end of the pitch, I reboarded this sequence like 19 times. Phil stands up and goes, I think we can build off of this one drawing. And it was back when we were on the wall. And I just dropped my stick and said, I'm done. Because I was so frustrated. But like that was probably the best thing that happened, because it was like the thing that we needed to unlock that sequence, because we've been kind of circling the wagons on it. But
yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
It's the game.
Yeah.
Rosie asks, how has everyone been doing adjusting to work from home? Have your work habits changed?
I procrastinate a lot more because there's lots of things to do here.
I sleep more for sure.
Is there something about procrastination? Is there, because like, you know, some people like writers, some artists, they need to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's part of the process. You know, it's actually more natural now, which is good.
Like I know some artists where they have a deadline. Okay, yeah, I need a week to do this, and then they won't do anything for 3 days.
Yeah.
Oh God. That's
I don't.
me.
But then there's something about that. You know, there's something there that is part of their process. No. To
You know
have
what? You know what's a
time
lot
to not do anything.
You know what's a lot easier now is like back when I was in the studio, I had to lie a lot because that was always the process, and I'd have to pretend like I was in front of things. But now I don't even have to do that. Like I can just procrastinate freely and just be afraid at the end, and no one has to see it.
It's like a friend of mine who worked in a hospital, and he said when things got really rough and he wanted to be left alone, he just put on gloves and walk around everywhere, and everybody thought he was doing something important.
Just walk around like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what kind of gloves? Like rubber gloves?
Like medical gloves, you know. You don't ask somebody to do something when they got medical gloves on, I don't think.
It's true.
It'd be funny if they were like weird, like kind of just like falconer gloves. Like that choice was the choice you made.
Then you know that guy's a rookie.
You don't want the gloves to be too interesting that people are going to ask you about them.
Yeah.
You gotta be like,
what's the deal with the gloves?
What makes a good story memorable? Or what makes a story good and memorable in your eyes?
I mean, it's the audience connection. Like, are you giving the audience something they haven't seen before in a way that they feel familiar enough that they can relax and enjoy it? And are you saying something? I think a good story should say something.
One of the terms that would always get passed around a couple years ago is, for designing anyways, is let's create something that is familiar yet different. Is that a thing?
Yeah, totally. And that's why I think we revise so much, because I think you want to land in a place where it's familiar. So like, at least for my creative process, where you're comfortable. And then you start to push against it, and you're always challenging the material to see whether or not you can get more subversive or more honest about it. And the only way I think for me to get there is by taking the fear away, which is get rid of the blank page, get your best ideas out first, and then just challenge them for 3.5 years until you get the best material.
It's fantastic. Why don't we try to finish this up, and we'll do another pitch and call it a day. Why don't we go on to some other questions too? Audience, if you have a question, raise your hand and you can ask it live. Rachel, you have the mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Rachel.
Hi. Wait, what was my question? Oh, I was wondering if you've ever had no ideas and how you kind of dealt with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I usually have no ideas. Most of the time I have no ideas.
I have an LA moment when I first moved to California to work on, I was on a movie called Open Season, and I'd been a TV story artist before then. So I'd never done like the story scrum where you sit around and kind of work like a writer's room. And the studio had, because it was like a new studio, a new department, we all went to the Chateau Marmont. And we were up in this suite up there, and the executives were walking around, and we were like supposed to be pitching funny ideas to make the movie funnier. And I just got stage fright because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know any of the other people there. And it was just this clamping fear of like, oh, fuck, they're going to fire me. I'm going to get kicked out of the country. I just got here. Yeah. And yeah, that was, that's happened a few times. Less now because I'm not afraid of being wrong. But I think early on in the career, definitely a lot. How about you guys?
You just go to what you know. I think a lot of, if I get stuck or something, it happens all the time, but I'll just be like, you know what? There's got to be something that pulls kind of like from things that I'm interested in that I could kind of like look at this in a different way. And yeah, a lot of times also it's just like you have a couple friends. I mean, other people is just really kind of like what does it. You can kind of call other people and just be like, hey, what do you think about this? And you know, they can just kind of like help if you have some of those friends that are like really good. Oh, what about this? Or what about that? Or what about this? You can kind of start like brainstorming or getting ideas from them. There's lots of things you can do in terms of like brainstorming exercises, like word relations, or just like writing down every word that comes to mind for something. There's and then, you know, like just keeping that list going and then looking at those things like what's the opposite of that? What's the, you know, what's the other, you know, like what's the similar idea to this, that type of idea. If you're talking about kind of, I think like things that you care about, it's usually just the things that you get kind of emotional about or irritated at, right? Like there's certain things in everyone's life that it's like, why is this like this? I can't believe it. And then on top of that, it doesn't make any sense because this person still acts like this. And I feel like a lot of truth comes out of that when you're just like, I just want, you know, when you get frustrated, you say, I just want this, or I just want to say, you know, this, or I just feel like this. And those are the things that that keep you passionate and you're able to like dig into because you want to solve or investigate those type of issues.
Last question from Kahenya.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi. I'm Kahenya from Kenya. And my question was, a lot of you've mentioned like improv and coming up with ideas on the spot. Like, what kind of experience do all of you have with that kind of training? Like, I'm talking about like improv. Do any of you go to like improv classes or have studied acting?
I should do that. I'm terrible at it.
We used to do it back at Sheridan back in the old days, and like yeah, I took acting classes last year actually. I try to do it every now and then. You guys?
I did improv at UCB for a year, and then I did like a year and a half like indie team. That was great. It's just you end up learning. I think through the practice of doing it so much, you start like finding your voice, but also like learning from different people and seeing how they do certain jokes. Oh, I like the way they do that. That helped out a lot. But I think throughout the improv that year is failing a lot and just making those mistakes, and then doing that sort of a library of stuff that you can use or go back to, or intuition on what to do and jump in and do certain jokes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Looks like it's pitch time. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Sue, you want to start us off?
Okay. So it's fast food Mario Kart. Ding, 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 and they take off. And then the turtle guy's watching them from the cloud, and he sees that they're all going rogue, veering off the path. What the fudge are they doing? He calls his banana phone. Hi, Sailor Moon, I need your help. Come quick.
And we cut to them driving off the cliff. Wow, it's really dramatic. What's going to happen? Meanwhile, bzz, bzz, Sailor Moon sitting out in the sun. Picks up the phone. What? Be right there. Shoots off into the sky.
She lands in and she's like, well, this is anticlimactic. And the little turtle dude's like, well, we just wanted you to come play with us. Like, we see the cowman. He's like, taco. He envisioned a taco.
And then the big hand comes down and plucks her up, and we see it's just a kid playing with a bunch of toys, and then she's dropped into a corn tortilla shell, and we cut out wide, and we see there's a bunch of humans in pens behind these giant herbivoric animals eating hamburgers, hot dogs, and human tacos.
Wow.
The irony. Yeah.
Amazing. Love it. Great job, everybody. And thank you so much to the audience for tuning in. I do want to remind everybody that Sunday is the last day for Lightbox Expo. If you did not check out the Artist Alley, definitely check it out. Support your fellow artists. Not only that, but all of the artists have put in painstakingly long hours to put exclusive things into the Artist Alley at Lightbox Expo. So go in there and get some unique, amazing items from some of your favorite artists behind your favorite things. All right, everybody. And the biggest thank you, of course, goes to our incredible panelists. Thank you so much for your time, your efforts, your thoughts. It's been awesome.
It's really fun. I really enjoyed drawing with you guys too. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was a great time. Thanks, Bobby, for setting this up.